It's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hockey News Big Show. I'm your host, Katie Gaus, joined by Michael Traikos and Ryan Kennedy. And joining Michael is a very festive nutcracker as we are in the holiday Christmas season. So very loving it. We had a sweater last week. Now we got the nutcracker. Everybody's getting festive this time of the year. But let's talk about something else that's been a little bit more of an exciting and happy topic potentially lately. And that's the Leafs. Things have been going a little bit better. The Leafs are now 4-2 in their last 6 games after a nice win over Carolina last night. But there's some holiday blues to be found there as well, as Joseph Woll did not finish the game after leaving with what appeared to be a lower body injury. We don't know the extent of that injury yet. But guys, from your perspective, because you watch the Leafs quite a bit, has there been tangible improvement? Do you feel they are going in the right direction? And what's the concern level? Michael, start us off with what this Woll injury could do to that potential improvement.
Very concerning. Right now, I would say that it's like DEFCON 2 or 3. It's
okay.
not quite. We're not quite at danger levels here where we have to evacuate the city, but Joseph Woll is, cleaning up a lot of mistakes for the Leafs. Like you even see the last night's game, the win against Carolina, they were getting outshot basically by a 2-1 margin. And that's been basically what we've seen out of the Leafs team is they get outshot a lot. And if the goaltender is standing on his head, as Woll has been, then they come out at least with a win or they're competitive. But, with Woll being out, like we should stop being surprised, right, Ryan? Like this is just like, I know earlier this season it wasn't an injury, but he was out of the lineup. And, last year, same thing happens. Like him and Stolarz could not stay healthy at the same time. Yeah. You go back to a couple years ago in the playoffs, Woll, famously missed Game 7 against the Boston Bruins. It's becoming something now where this guy cannot stay healthy enough to be a legit number one goalie. And I think that's the main concern is without Woll, now you're turning things over to Dennis Hildeby, and he's just not as good as either Stolarz or Woll.
Yeah. You do have to ask the question at this point, like, is there something fundamentally wrong with Woll in terms of like strength, conditioning, preparation? Like, what is it that is leading to these injuries? Is it just terrible luck?
Maybe he's one of those guys that he has to be 100% or he just doesn't play.
Yeah. You know what? Like, I mean, he's a gamer. I'm sure he would like to play if he was healthy, but these little tweaks happen, or more serious things. And it is very difficult because, you get a big win against Carolina. It feels like the Leafs don't typically beat Carolina. Hey, I mean, great for them and great for the Hildebeest to step up and, keep things rolling there in the third period so that they could get that win. But they have Montreal and Tampa Bay next, 2 teams that hate them. So they're not going to go easy on the Leafs. And so you hope that with Woll, it was just something that made him uncomfortable. And, maybe he's back for the game against the Habs. But if not, it's going to be Dennis Hildeby. We don't know when Anthony Stolarz is going to be back. And, a part of the reason the Leafs have been better of late is they've been getting a little bit healthier. Obviously, Austin Matthews coming back is the main driver there. But they're still a banged up unit. And they're not in the worst position right now because, as we've talked about before, the East is so packed, but they can't afford to drop games because of this triage unit. So, hopefully for their sake, Woll just needed a bit of time to shake something loose.
Yeah, it's like every time I go on Twitter, X, whatever you want to say, it's somebody else from Toronto going down. And I mean, at one point it really was like the full triage unit was just out there all the time. But goaltending has been something that has bailed them out, and certainly to finally be getting on the right track and then have something like this happen. You hope that they can respond the right way, that they can kind of dig into the other things that maybe had been going well, and not just thinking this was only the result of good goaltending, that they were finding success. But I mean, with Stolars and Woll just trading places and now both in a tough spot, you have to hope that whatever did happen to Woll won't be serious, or the Leafs could be right back into a tough situation. Let's keep it in the East and talk a little bit about the Washington Capitals, a team who, kind of started off a little bit middling, weren't sure exactly what they were going to look like this year, but they're coming in hot right now. 6 in a row they've won, and they've got a 9-1-0 record in their last 10 games, bumping themselves right up to the top of the Metro. Goaltending has been great. They've got Ryan Leonard now on a roll in that rookie points race. Jacob Chikrin and John Carlson both killing it on the back end. So things are starting to turn. They're starting to kind of click on a lot of different levels in Washington. Has this changed our perception at all of them as playoff contenders? What do we feel about them in terms of, what this team maybe could look like if they were to make a cup run?
Yeah, I mean, for me, selfishly, I would love for Washington to make a run to the Stanley Cup because it's a hub airport. It's easy to fly there. I could go to Ooze and Oz
Ryan, always
and get
thinking.
amazing, fried chicken and mac and cheese. I could go to the Discord House in Arlington and get my picture taken on the porch. But I think this is very much the same Caps team as last year, where if you look at some of their best players, their shooting percentages are way too high. Tom Wilson is at like almost 27%. Ovechkin's at almost 20%. And that's what we saw last year, where Strome, Ovechkin, and Protas had these unsustainable shooting percentages. And eventually, once they got to the second round of the playoffs, they obviously cooled down once they played a very good team. Not that Montreal wasn't very good, but they were kind of happy to be there. Right. The Caps do have a great defense. They do have a great offense. Their special teams are not good, which again, once you get to the playoffs, that can be a crucial factor. So, I mean, I kind of feel at this point that they're better than I expected. I wasn't sure if they were going to be a playoff team. I thought they would probably drop out. Now I think they're a playoff team, but I think they're probably like, once again, maybe second round fodder unless they clean some things up.
Okay.
Oh, I'm higher on them than you are. It sounds like. I think they have the best goalie in the NHL, Ryan, and Logan Thompson. What can we say about him other than he should be on the Olympic team? Like, this guy is I think he's the main reason why Washington is where they are. Obviously, Alex Ovechkin is scoring again, and you point to a high shooting percentage, but it's Ovechkin. He should have a high shooting percentage. I know it's
high for him.
Usual. It's Ovechkin.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Shoot or shoot. He's on pace for 40 goals now. This was a guy that, we were talking not too long ago saying, will he score 30 goals? So 14 goals.
Couldn't get that 900 forever, and now boom, here we go.
Yeah, this is what Ovi does, though. He scores in bunches. And I think when he starts scoring, everything else starts falling into place as well. And, Tom Wilson is playing out of his mind. Again, like, what can we say about him other than he should be on Team Canada? So, I like the Caps. I think as we go further along, they're going to get better contributions even from their young guys, because they are a team that, is a mixture of young and old. And, as we saw last year, when both sides or both ends of the spectrum are clicking, it's a dangerous team. So I don't know if they're going to surpass Carolina, but for sure they should be a playoff team.
All right. I mean, again, too, if we want to see the Penguins make it, and then we want to see Ovi make it, and maybe we get a little Pittsburgh, Washington type action, nobody would say no to that. That would be so much fun to see at any age, at any stage.
And then Ryan can go to Ferranti Brothers too, right?
Exactly.
Oh, the food trip. Let's just plan it out now. We got it on an all-time food route for Ryan. All right. Well, how about this? We get the Tampa Bay Lightning getting a little bit of business done. Ryan McDonagh signed into a 3-year extension, around $4.1 million per year for the 36-year-old. So Tampa Bay now got a whole lot of guys that are locked up long term. They're kind of pulling the Florida Panthers here with a lot of these key pieces and a lot of these guys from previous years of Cup success are sticking around and going to be a part of this for quite a while. Obviously, you've got guys like Gensel, Hedman, Chernak, Chiarelli, Paul, Gore. I mean, a ton of players are here to stay, and Tampa's now playing a little bit better. So what are your thoughts, kick us off, Michael, on the extension? You know, is this going to age well? I guess it's hard to predict, but he's 36. And then just the idea of signing up this many players long-term to kind of keep this core group from previous years of success together for as long as they are obviously going to be.
Yeah, Julian Brisebois, he does a great job in Tampa, and I know he does get a lot of accolades, but to build this core and keep it together for so long, and to make some hard decisions like sending Stamkos out the door wasn't an easy decision. Definitely wasn't a popular decision, but you see how Stamkos has sort of fallen off since he's gone to Nashville. It was the right decision, as painful as that was. And, he did some tidy work now with the back end. We were joking, Ryan asked us the other day, can you name the Tampa Bay defense that was in the lineup the other day for one of the games? And it's like, there's a bunch of AHLers that were playing on the back end. That's how banged up their defense has been. So for Tampa to be where they are, it's pretty remarkable. And, I like this signing. I don't know if it's going to age well because, you think a guy's playing well, then all of a sudden he hits a certain age and all of a sudden the wheels just fall off. And, that very
injuries,
well with McDonagh. But, it's a good team that Tampa Bay has. You look at their forward core and it's just a who's who of guys who are going to the Olympics or heading to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, especially because Coach Cooper is going to make sure he brings all his besties with him.
They deserve to be there, though. Let's be honest.
That's fair. Ryan, what do you think?
Well, I do think that this is a team that, recognizes that they're still in their Stanley Cup window. Yeah. And maybe at this point they look at where Florida is in the standings and say, okay, well, we have a better shot than we even thought right now because we don't have to play our in-state cousins along the way, or at least they hope they won't have to play them. With this contract, and maybe the last year is a bit of a write-off. It's hard to say because McDonagh is 36 already, but he has always been an athlete, right? Like he was a multi-sport athlete in high school. So, assuming you look at athletes these days and, their conditioning, their off-ice training in the summer is pretty elite, obviously. So, I think if he can hang on and stay healthy and I guess get healthier because he was out of the lineup, then what you have there, right? You have a guy that can give you minutes. He's dependable. He's been there before. There's something to say for that group in Tampa where it's like, most of these guys have already won multiple cups. Mm-hmm. They know what it takes. We trust them. So, why not? And with the rising cap, again, you're going to have a little more wiggle room in the future. And just as a bonus, Mike, can you remember any of the defensemen that we talked about 2 days ago? From that
only one I'm thinking of is JJ Moser. It's
JJ Moser.
Darren Radish.
Darren Radish. Who else was in that game? This is a fun game for Katie, too.
A bunch of names that you made up on the spot, I'm convinced.
All to be said that Tampa is, winning and getting it done without a decor that you would want to try to go on a playoff run with. And, ideally will not be the case because they will be getting guys back. They will be getting healthier, but they're still winning, unlike their Florida cousins who have a lot of injuries and unfortunately have not been able to find ways to win nearly as much as they need to. All right, let's talk about some more teams that are not winning. Tampa's not one of them, but Nashville certainly is. The struggles continue, finding themselves there at the bottom of the Central. So naturally, the trade rumors start to circulate. What is Barry Trotz doing? What is he waiting for? What is going to happen with some of the guys that he brought in? And two names that are kind of continuing to circulate are Ryan O'Reilly and Steven Stamkos. So do we think that either of these players could be on the move? And maybe what would be a potential trade target, a team that could, see something in one of them. And the bonus question is that now that Julian Brisebois got what he needed out of getting rid of Stamkos, could we see a Stamkos reunion in Tampa Bay at a much discounted rate? Ryan, what do we think?
even with a discounted rate, I don't think they have the cap space to bring Stamkos back. Because remember, we're now in the new era of the playoff cap roster, so it's not like they can take the LTIR from Victor Hedman's contract and push it forward. You can't do that anymore, unfortunately. I believe, and we talked about this earlier in the week, I think Dallas is probably a pretty good fit for one of those two guys, especially with Tyler Seguin being out for the year now. Ryan O'Reilly, obviously a center that plays a fantastic two-way game and can fit up and down a lineup. I mean, Stamkos is kind of interesting there too, right? Where, I mean, Dallas already has a lot of firepower, but, what if you put Stamkos in that lineup? That's a team that, because of Seguin, and he's not coming back, that you actually could fit him under. But I do see O'Reilly as the player that's probably a little more coveted. The other team I'm thinking about right now that's not a lock to make the playoffs, but would be kind of interesting, is the New York Islanders. Like a team that Barry Trotz knows, and a team that has punched above their weight. So do they maybe reward themselves? Does Matthew Darche go out and again, Matthew Darche has familiarity with Steven Stamkos, but it is a big ticket, and
the hockey world.
Does Stamkos want to go? All big questions.
Yeah,
I like Dallas as a landing spot for Steven Stamkos. I think if you're talking about who replaces Tyler Seguin, I think you're more likely to have a Stamkos slide in that role than a Ryan O'Reilly, to be honest. Stamkos is a center, but he's played the wing for a number of years. So, and that's where Seguin was kind of situated on that line with Rupe Hintz and Jason Robertson. So I think he could slide in there with no, I don't think there's going to be a transition. The other team, and I don't know how it would work, but I'm just going to say it. Toronto Maple Leafs. Come on. The kids from Markham.
Of course.
They tried to get him to sign as a free agent so many years ago, to the point where, I think the head of Canadian Tire made a pitch for, you will be the face of Canadian Tire for the rest of your life.
Who doesn't want that?
Wow.
I want it. Okay. Put him on a second line, put him on a top line. I don't care where he plays. I just don't know how you make it work. What salaries would have to go back? You're probably talking maybe like a Morgan O'Reilly or, someone of that stature, or maybe it's a combination of Max Domi and a couple other bodies in a pick or something. But, that would be so much fun.
You know what else would be fun, though, is seeing Steven Stamkos go to Dallas and then playing the Tampa Bay Lightning in the Stanley Cup final. Now, that would be some juicy drama.
Full circle moment.
Would love to see something like that play out. Ooh, I could see it now. All the emotions, all the intrigue. All right, we'll see where anybody ends up. Let's keep the rumor discussion floating along. And we've got St. Louis, who's also being kind of pulled into that mix. They are kind of a team that is struggling offensively, has been a huge issue for them scoring this year. So naturally, some names get thrown out. And one of them is goalie Jordan Binnington. He's obviously proven that he can be clutch between the Stanley Cup in 2019, obviously 4 Nations last year. I believe he has a 13 or 14 team no trade clause. But if the Blues continue to struggle and remain, out of that playoff picture as the season continues to roll along, do we think that Binnington could be on the move? Is it something you think he would consider if he was given the opportunity to step in and be on a cup contending team, make a run at it? What do we think, Michael?
Well, with the way he's playing, Katie, there's probably 14 teams that probably have a no Binnington clause on their
but he can be clutch, right? That's the whole book with Binnington.
And that's the thing. Whoever is acquiring Binnington, you're hoping that, a change of scenery just does him well. If I'm a team acquiring him, I better have a maple leaf on the jersey, because that seems to be the only time he actually plays well these days is when he's wearing a Team Canada jersey. So maybe Toronto, now that they're missing both starting goaltenders, is a good landing spot. I'm joking. I don't think the Leafs should go out and get Binnington. I actually don't think any team should go out and get Binnington right now. It's to the point where he's making so much money where you're bringing him in and you're hoping that he's a savior, and he's just not putting up savior type numbers. And, we talked about Edmonton as a landing spot. Like, would he be an upgrade over Stuart Skinner? Like right now, it doesn't look like it, aside from the fact that, again, you just hope that he changes course. But, I'm curious to think or hear what Ryan has to say about this.
Well, for me, there is something convenient here, which is that the Olympics take place before the trade deadline. So if Jordan Binnington plays lights out at the Olympics for Team Canada, then a team that is in need of goaltending for a long playoff run that for whatever reason doesn't have it already can look at a sort of proof of concept and be like, okay, yeah, he still has it. It's just he needs to be in that pressure-packed situation. He needs to have a good team in front of him, which, it sounds kind of silly, but, there is something to making that save that your team needs when they need it. It's like the classic Grant Fuhr, right? Like Grant Fuhr could give up 4 goals in a game, but he never gave up that 5th one, and Edmonton would win 5-4, right? It's all like situational. And Binnington at the Four Nations, for the most part, had that. He certainly had that at the most crucial time when they beat the Americans in the gold medal game. So I think that the Olympics will go a long way in figuring out if teams will have interest in Jordan Binnington. Because right now, you're right, Mike. I mean, he's not a sure thing by any stretch of the imagination. And teams aren't going to want to just assume that the Four Nations was his apex and not a fluke at this point in his career.
Yeah.
It's such a tough situation, specifically when you consider, everything. We've talked, ad nauseum now about the conversations that could be happening in Edmonton about how to potentially fix their goaltending situation and whether the devil is better than the one you don't. And Stuart Skinner, you could say, okay, he's gotten you there twice, but is he the reason you didn't win it twice? And what does that third year look like if you're really pushing for it? But again, you're trading similar situations to the point where I just don't know if bringing in a new guy is something that, just from a team perspective and the culture perspective, you have to worry about the room and the way that things change. And Jordan Binnington is a unique personality. Will he get along with everyone? Does it mesh? I'm saying that in the nicest way that I can, the most diplomatic way possible. But again, I think it all comes down to how much Edmonton truly internally believes that they cannot win with Stuart Skinner. And if they really feel that way, and like you said, Ryan, if Binnington were to go out and have an amazing Olympic run, then I don't think it'd be the craziest thing. Teams get desperate. How desperate are they? How worried really are they? None of us truly know what's being discussed in those rooms. But let's talk about this. For over 75 years, the Hockey News has been the ultimate hockey fix. And now you can get 12 issues delivered right to you with stories, stats, and a bonus issue to kick things off. So visit thn.com to check it out, especially in time for the holiday season. Great Christmas gift for anyone on your list. Coming up, we've got the BetMGM playbook with Gary Pearson. Well, it's time now for the BetMGM playbook with Gary Pearson joining us. Gary, we've got some long shots to win the NHL's Eastern and Western conferences. So let's start out in the East. We've got the Ottawa Senators and the Pittsburgh Penguins. So when you look at the odds out of these two teams, who are you picking, I guess, to finish at the top of the conference based on what you're seeing, but also what the odds makers are saying?
Yeah, so to win the Eastern Conference, as a long shot goes, at the moment I'm fading the Senators. Reason being, I mean, Kachuk's back. They're 1-3 since he's come back. Obviously, it's going to take him some time to get some match, some game fitness.
Sure.
Ullmark's still inconsistent. He's been better of late. He's won a few games, but I'm still fading the Senators until I see a bit more from them. I'm jumping on the Pens bandwagon. I mean, I just have to at this point, and the value is exquisite. So as of earlier this week, the Pens were actually, they had less likelihood and longer odds than the Buffalo Sabres to win the East. Now, that's a real head scratcher. So the odds makers have sniffed the smelling salts in the last few days, and they've awoken, And it looks as though now the Pens are more likely than the Sabres, albeit marginally.
Okay.
Speaking of the Sabres, they haven't been in the playoffs since the first episode of the Game of Thrones, I believe. So that was 2011, if you're wondering. The Pens, definitely on their bandwagon. I mean, Jari, so they played pretty poorly without him. He was injured for a little bit. They won 2 of 7, I think, with Artur Silovs in goal. The Siv Silovs, he's been kind of resembling the Canucks Silovs lately. He's lost 7 of his last 8 starts. But with Jari in goal, they're 9-2-0 with his starts. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Some of their stats are mediocre, but they've got exceptional special teams.
Yeah.
Top power play, 5th ranked penalty kill. Crosby's on pace for 57 goals. His previous best was 51. And interestingly, Malkin is on pace for 66 assists, which obviously is the number of their owner and probably, in my opinion, the best player of all time. And he only eclipsed that once before, and that was in the year they won the Stanley Cup in it was 2008, 2009. So I'm on the Pens bandwagon.
Yeah, it seems that as the goalies go, so do the Penguins, right? And unfortunately, Jari, you look at him funny, and he finds a way to get injured. So it's not maybe the craziest thing to think that the odds makers were hesitant to give the Penguins the go ahead. Oh, but over Buffalo, I'm not sure about that one. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Western Conference now for a second. We've got some long shots there as well. The Anaheim Ducks sitting pretty at the top of the Pacific. But again, how long can this last? There's some youth there still. And then we've got the Minnesota Wild, who are riding the hot goaltending story. So out of those two teams, Gary, kind of what are you anticipating? What do the odds makers say? But ultimately, what's the eye test saying?
Yeah, I mean, the Ducks, what a story they are. As you said, I don't think they can sustain it. Pretty young team, pretty inexperienced team. So I am going to go in this one with the Wild. And again, it's a snapshot of the current ongoings and how well the Wild are playing, especially defensively. We all know about the goaltending as well, like Wallstedt, unbelievable. I mean, small sample size, obviously, but 5 shutouts in his first 15 NHL starts and
1938. That's the last time somebody did it.
All right.
I mean, it's incredible. Regardless of sample size, it's exceptional. And so for me, their 7-game winning streak that's obviously ended now. They beat Vegas, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Winnipeg, Edmonton. So I mean, it's a bit of a litmus test. It was a good run. They are allowing, I think, the 8th most expected goals, so they are going to need their goaltending at those kind of statistics.
Yeah.
But if they can, I mean, if Wallstedt can sustain any sort of resemblance of what he's playing right now, they would give anyone a really tough go of it in the playoffs. Since the 1st of November, Minnesota is actually the 2nd best team in the league. I mean, we can all guess who's better, right? So, Colorado Avalanche were the only team.
Yeah, it's an easy answer there. All right. Well, Michael, I want you to start us off with this one, and then I'll see what Gary thinks, if he agrees with you and what the odds say. But which conference do you think is the toughest to make it to the top in? What's the hardest one to crack in terms of if you're going to be the top dog? Which one is more difficult?
I think it's the East. And, I hear what you're saying about Colorado. And, it's hard to be the top dog when, Colorado's just not losing any games. But
we have Nate Dogg.
Right now, even in the Atlantic Division, you've got Toronto and Florida near the bottom of the standings. That's not going to stay. And I think it just speaks to how competitive the Atlantic is. And then also how competitive the East is, because if you look at the 2 wildcard teams, it looks like the Metro might be stealing both of those spots in the East. So, both divisions or both conferences are going to be competitive, I think, all the way through, where we're going to come down to the final season. But, I just think that the East is the stronger one. And let's face it, the last 2 Stanley Cup winners have come from the East.
Gary, you agree? Do you concur?
I like the points Michael made. They're very sound. I'm going West is best though, just because of how top heavy it is. I mean, the discrepancy between the top and the bottom is much bigger, which again can be good and bad depending on which side you look at it.
Sure.
But I think that there's some real beasts in the West, and I mean the Central Division for me is just so stacked. Winnipeg is really kind of stumbling along here and there, but they have the best goaltender in the world, aside from the playoffs, of course.
Yeah, and
but
he'll be back. The stumbling occurring without Hellebuck isn't a shock to anybody, right?
No, exactly. And Comrie can only do so much, right? So I think that the West is there just because of, you have Dallas, you have Colorado, Edmonton. Again, I keep on talking about it. Will they wake up? Will they not wake up? I mean, they played well in the last couple of games anyways. They're, I think, going to always be there come playoff time with McDavid and Draisaitl in the team.
Yeah.
So it's pretty top heavy. And there's a couple teams there that I just can't see too many teams beating, especially with Florida's malaise and maybe their attrition. I think Carolina is an absolutely incredible, well-rounded team. I just don't think they are as good as a Colorado, even as a Dallas right now. So I'm going to go West.
Yeah, and especially with the goaltending, that is going to continue to be a factor. I mean, for Colorado, right, they're getting hot goaltending on top of everything else that they're doing well. But those are both guys that haven't necessarily proven themselves as playoff winners, so there's still a question mark in that regard. But Carolina, we know the goaltending continues to be something that ails them as they go further and further between injuries and everything else. They have the great style. They have Rod Brind'Amour hockey. How far can it take you? But I love it. I love talking about long shots. They're long shots for a reason, and that's why the odds are so good if you can get in on them now. But if I had to pick one out of all the ones we just discussed, I think it would be, like we mentioned, really great to see the Pittsburgh Penguins getting that top spot in the East for the Crosby Malkin and that whole saga. Awesome stuff, though, Gary. Thanks so much. That was the BetMGM playbook. Let's now get into some rapid fire. Thanks so much, Gary. All right, guys, let's get into some rapid fire. We've got a lot of good storylines at this stage of the NHL season, but what is the best story so far? And this can be a team's success, a player, something off the ice, whatever it is. Start us off, Michael. What's the story for you that's been the most enjoyable to watch
Connor
play
Bedard.
out?
Yeah, it's Connor Bedard in Chicago.
Yeah.
And a sophomore slump last year. Right now, he's 5 goals away from what he achieved last year in goal total. So he's just having an outstanding year. I'll say it right now. He's my pick to win the Rocket Richard.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah. And you know what? And because of Bedard, like Chicago's going as well. So, it's a happy story because I think he got a lot of criticism for how he played last year and, for all his shortcomings defensively and in the faceoff circle. So to see Bedard basically become the player that, Ryan and I and the whole hockey world thought he was going to be, it's great to see.
Yeah, that magazine cover is looking better and better every day.
There you go.
What's your story, Ryan?
I'm going to go with the Anaheim Ducks because they are still in first place in the Pacific Division. And not only are we past American Thanksgiving, but, we're coming up on Christmas in a couple of weeks. So, the fact that this is a group that has come together, Leo Carlsson has been amazing. He's probably Sweden's #1 center for the Olympics this year. And again, he was drafted the same year as Connor Bedard. This is a guy that's still just truly beginning his NHL career. But overall, the Ducks have been an amazing squad. And, Joel Quenneville coming in, gave them the coaching that clearly they needed. He had experience with young groups when he was back in Chicago, and those turned into Stanley Cup winners. So obviously the bar is very high there. But it's just kind of neat to see a team that had been in the sort of the trough of a rebuild come out of that and really establish themselves so far as a force.
Ryan, year 3, Bedard, Carlson, and Adam Fantilli all having sort of the career years.
Yep.
I like it. And with Chicago in particular, too, I also love the Spencer Knight story that's being tied into the entire Blackhawks success run that they have. But for Bedard, I think the cherry on top would be, as we approach the final decisions for Olympic rosters that are heating up more than ever, to see him on that squad, would really, again, there's so many good candidates, but it would just continue this awesome evolution of him, rewriting the story after last year. I think he got such flack, and you just look back on those post-game press conferences where he just looked so defeated. And this is just, it's awesome. You want to root for him. You want him to be the generational amazing player that we predicted, and it was all discussed, and now he's doing that. So it's been wonderful. Good stories from both of you. All right, how about this? 3 feet short. Yikes. You don't want that. Not with your Olympic hockey rink coming up real soon. The issues surrounding the construction of the rink in Milan continue to raise major concerns and questions. So the question for you, kick us off, Ryan. On a scale of 1 to 10, with everything that you're hearing and all the constant discussions going on, how concerned are you about the rink situation at the Olympics?
I'm gonna do a 6 out of 10, where I'm kind of concerned, but another part of me is like, well, they have to finish it, right? Like it's the
Yeah.
They have to have the Olympics. They have to have the marquee sport there.
Mhm.
Maybe the concession stands won't be ready. Maybe Mike and I'll have to sit on bar stools instead of a press box.
Yeah.
But as long as they've got boards and ice and glass and nets and a roof, it should be done in time, right? They can get some extra guys, add a third shift, to the construction. It seems like people are paying attention to this now.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Ryan. I'm gonna go a 5 or a 4 or a 5 in terms of concern level. This happens every Olympics, whether it's winter, whether it's summer. The venues get put together literally on the last day. Like I remember,
Yeah.
when the Athens had the Olympics, I think like Olympians were walking into dorm rooms that didn't have doorknobs on them. Like it was literally like the paint wasn't dry and they were about to play the game. So this is sort of what they do. And in Europe,
Yeah.
it's like what Ryan said, like until it's the day before, they don't start really working. And, maybe the dimensions are going to be an issue. I have to think that that even gets squared away. Like there is still time enough to change the dimensions, isn't there?
Well, and I've been loving the discussions of like, okay, so if the ice is shorter, do we bring different players? And like that whole dialogue is actually
Tom Wilson.
unbelievable.
Bedard's not on the team now because it's 4 feet shorter.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, we actually don't need this guy skating, but we want his reach because now there's less room for everybody. Like, this is what are we doing? I think we know it'll get done. We hope it'll get done. Just so we know, Lake Placid, great spot for Team USA. We would love to have you guys all come back here so we can do it all over again. They've got plenty of ice, and I promise you it is the correct size. So just throwing that one out there for anybody. All right, Ryan, this one's for you in particular. What has caught your eye in the prospects world over the past week or so?
Well, the big story is the return of Tynan Lawrence with USHL Muskegon. He was injured most of the season. He's been back for 3 games. He has 7 points in those games. He had a hat trick in the last one. Tynan Lawrence is one of the top prospects for the 2026 NHL draft. He's a center, a pure center, and that's surprisingly rare in this draft class. There are not a lot of high-end pivots. The top 2 are basically Tynan Lawrence and then Caleb Malhotra from OHL Brantford. So I think that, Lawrence, he was the playoff MVP for the Lumberjacks last year. They won it all in the USHL. He was amazing, obviously. And really, it's just about, okay, well, is he still that guy? Is he going to be that dynamic 2-way center that we saw last year? And the early returns are that, yes, he is. So let's hope for a clean bill of health the rest of the way through, and we see big numbers from Tynan Lawrence because he's certainly an exciting player.
I like it. Michael, I'm going to make you name a prospect. How do you spell Tynan? Go.
Tynan.
Go.
Starts with a T. Starts with a T, okay? And
Starts
then
with
it
a
could
T.
go in. We could go
Ends with
either
an
A, we could go
N.
Y, we could go E, we could go I. Like,
why would you go A?
Tynan. All right, let's talk about.
I don't know. I don't want to get into who names their kid Tynan, but
We'll just call him Ty.
Michael's out there. I'm just
everybody will feel better about that.
Great
All
name.
right, Ty. Okay, let's go. Last one, guys. What's a quote that made you think, say what? Because there's always some fun hockey quotes floating around. We've had some pretty good ones lately. So, Michael, what's your quote?
I'm going to stick with the whole Olympic ice surface. Austin Matthews, when asked about the dimensions and whether he's concerned, he says, in the end, it can be 100 by 100 foot sheet. You just want to go out there. I think Austin Matthews speaks for probably not just all the players, but all the fans. whether this thing is 4 feet short, 4 feet long, 400 feet short, or 400 feet long, we just want to see NHLers at the Olympics. So give us Olympic hockey. I know there's some talk about, hey, if they don't get this squared away, the NHL should not send that. Who's saying that? Stop saying that. Okay?
Don't do that.
We want to see NHLers at the Olympics. I don't care if they're playing outside. I don't care if the nets are as big as soccer nets. Just get them there. So thank you, Austin Matthews, for saying what you said.
Agreed.
All right. And this is the last question?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to switch up my answer because I really wanted to talk about this. I agree with John Cooper calling it laughable. That's my quote about the goal getting called back on Tampa Bay against Pittsburgh last night when the puck hit Brandon Hagel in the glove and went to Jake Gensel. Tampa Bay scored on the play. It was overruled on a hand pass. I thought that was absolutely wild. That is like accidentally getting shot and then them arresting you for stealing a bullet. That certainly should have been a goal. So I agree with John Cooper that the call was laughable. And I don't know where you even go from there.
He directed the puck. Come on.
He didn't even know what was going on. He was just like afraid for his own safety.
You were like this, and then
Yeah.
I was worried about our timing, so I cut that out. But if you hadn't said it, Ryan, I was going to bring that one up as well. But I take your laughable and I raise it, the post-game press conference comment where he said to a reporter, if I threw this microphone at you right now, would you put your hand up to stop it? Hell yeah, you would.
Yes. Thank you, John Cooper.
John Cooper, quote
Voice of
machine,
reason.
you know it. He's always good for. But when I realized looking back that the Situation Room was the one that came in and did that, that's what made it just full-blown absurd. It had happened. I was watching the play over and over, and I'm like, when did this happen? This happened so long ago. Why are we going?
I didn't know you could challenge hand passes from like a minute ago.
Like final minute of the game, and they get involved. I guess. But either way, we all agree with John Cooper. I think that was laughable, and the quote was laughable as well. So well done, guys. Very good stuff. All right, that does it for this episode of the Hockey News Big Show. I'm Katie Gaus, Michael Traikos, Ryan Kennedy. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.